Hello, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the series HYDRA. Here we go, man. Like I said, some of them are going to be me and Mav, and some of them we're going to have some guests on. And today I got Brian and Jeremy from Buy Their Fruits podcast. They are joining us today. I heard them over with good old buddy William Ramsey, good friend of mine, dropped off some books. He knows where I live, so I got to keep it cool and straight because he delivered that stuff, and, I don't want him to investigate me because that's what he's called. William Ramsey Investigates over there. He's an awesome researcher, author, and I heard him over there, these guys on his show, and I was like, I got to have him on. I love that information about the World Economic Forum. And if you don't know what that's about, well, that's what these guys are here for, to give us like some details within we can fit within this time that we have, but we definitely feel like it's a part of this whole octopus situation, the specter, the hell hydra. There's a lot going on that is coming soon, in our opinion. So welcome to the show, Brian and Jeremy from Buy Their Fruits podcast. So what's going on, guys?
Not too much, man. It's an honor to be on here, and I appreciate you inviting us on, and hopefully we can edify some people. That's for sure, because this is a very important group that not too many people know about. They kind of showed up in the last few years, even though they've been around since the 70s. But a lot of people haven't heard of them. So
yeah. And Brian, how you doing over there, buddy?
I am doing well. That's pretty cool about William. I didn't know that. Me and him have kind of grown really cool over the years, talking about a lot of things. And I sent him some guests, and at one time, he was like, "Hey, I saw that you were, researching GMOs. You want to come talk GMOs?" And man, it just unlocked a crazy amount of stuff, and it's still helping me make connections. And so that's awesome that it linked us up with you. And you couldn't have picked a more important topic, especially for the current time. So yeah, we're just ready to dig in and throw all this info at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that you say that because there's a lot of information. And on this show, we don't stand hard on this is what's going to happen, but we know that there's a lot of possibilities. And I mean, if you look at the show, Fire Theft Radio, in the last 6 years we've been around, 7 years, thank God, of course, we've called a lot of shots because God has really revealed that kind of stuff to us. And, you hate to be right, actually, with a lot of this stuff. It's kind of like, I don't want to say I told you so almost, but that's where we are right now. So, Mav, you have anything to say before we get this whole thing rolling?
No, it's just sort of picking up some of the pieces. Like you said, we don't like to make predictions. We can make logical connections, and I think that's one of the more helpful ways to handle a lot of really complex information is to think what could the next steps be. What's helpful is those of us who are walking with Jesus, we know the end, and so we already know what the end is. And so if we can figure out where we are in the present and start to make some of those connections, we find a better way to make some of our decisions, I think, without being date setters. So I'm actually really excited to have this good conversation. So
exactly. Well, one of the things that is really changing is our financial world. Now, the World Economic Forum, it's kind of a deceptive name just because it doesn't just deal with finances in a sense. It deals with a lot more things. But before we get into all of that stuff, guys, whoever wants to start, how did it start? Who's in there? Why should we care? Who started it? Who are these folks? And just give us a little history about that.
So I'll give you a real quick rundown. This is Bryant, and then I'll let Jeremy jump right in and start breaking some of that down, because that's how this works in the past, and I think it'll work good for this show as well. So, okay. World Economic Forum, WEF, it's a Swiss nonprofit founded in Geneva, Switzerland. It was formed in 1971 as the European Management Forum. In 1987, it changed to the WEF, or the World Economic Forum. Now, this is a quote from them: committed to improving the state of the world by engaging business, political, academic, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. Its annual meeting is at the end of the year, every year, January, in Davos, Switzerland. So you can take it from there, Jeremy.
Yeah, so this is basically a giant think tank for all the corporate leaders and financial leaders and presidents and high level government. Um, in my opinion, I believe that they are like the mechanism for how the new world order is going to start to like come together. And Klaus Schwab started this when he was 33 years old, and there's
Isn't that
some
interesting,
tie. Yeah,
right?
yeah, oh yeah.
We
And
talk
there's some
about the
ties, man, to
33 here all the time.
what's that?
Sorry to interrupt, but we talk about the 33 here all the time. And it's just, I just want to bring that up to people, how often that comes up, the 33, and how relevant it is for stuff like that to happen. Either someone turns that age or the day, like Bezos selling Amazon on like March, what's it, January, February, March, right? March 3rd, and which is 33.3 and all that. I mean, it's just interesting, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You find that everywhere with a bunch of different parts and aspects of society and how things fall together. This 33 is a quite an important number
Mm-hmm.
to the occult, especially.
Mm-hmm.
But Klaus Schwab is the son of Eugene Schwab, and him. So Eugene and his wife ended up, and I believe it's actually this his wife. I don't remember her name, but she is Klaus Schwab's stepmom, and he mentions her a lot in a lot of things. And it's important to realize that he doesn't mention his actual mom quite a bit because it said that she was a Jew. And the reason why that is so important is because Klaus Schwab and his father and stepmother moved to Nazi Germany during World War II. And his dad, Eugene, ended up setting up this company called Escher Wise AG. And the importance of this company was that they were a part of a national socialist organization, right? And they helped the Nazis create technology and supplied them with weapons such as flamethrowers. They were the ones responsible for making flamethrowers for them and stuff. And so his dad was like founder, not the founder, but the president of this company at the time. And another big thing about this company is that they also helped the Nazis with nuclear weapon capabilities. So they made technology to help them acquire nuclear weapons. And not only the Nazis, but later on in this, just later on, Klaus Schwab ended up taking this company over for a short period of time, and he helped nations such as South Africa gain nuclear technology as well. So without Escher Wise and Klaus Schwab, South Africa wouldn't have nuclear weapons, and neither would have Germany at the time.
Hmm.
So, so there is a tie in his. So his father was basically a Nazi, right? He was very supportive. He might have not came out and said, "Hey, I'm a Nazi," but his ideologies were the same. They were a part of his National Socialist organization, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So Klaus Schwab has the same type of ideology as his father did. Now he created this organization, as we said, called the World Economic Forum, and they are very, very blunt that they are creating a one world government, a new world order. This is what their goal is. They're trying to influence all sectors of society and the major spheres of society in order to accomplish this goal. And if you have any questions, by the way, feel free to stop me. But
No, all I was going to mention is earlier you said it started in Switzerland, correct?
yep. So
And
that's where they're from.
right. No, I'm just seeing a lot of stuff's going on in Switzerland, right? Like there's this Davos situation, and there's like the CERN situation, and
World Banks.
the World Banks. I mean, it's like, I almost feel like the propaganda we've received of Switzerland is like, don't worry about Switzerland. They're neutral. Nothing's going on over there, while literally like the world's getting taken over by stuff that's going on over there. So it's just kind of weird. It's the same thing happened with like Borat. Like, don't look at Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan's just people over there with goats, and there's nothing to look at over there. But it's like one of the most advanced New World Order type cities in the world, and so it's just like it's one of those things, like as they say, it's always the quiet ones. It's kind of
Yeah, and then I think part of it is this idea of being neutral. They've connected the idea of being neutral with being inactive, and I think that's part of that is they by saying, well, they're neutral. They want you to think that means they're not doing anything. That just means they step back and let everyone else uh, actually join the hot wars or the hot conflicts and those different things. But I think that, I don't know if that's part of a psyop. I don't know if that's part of the plan, but it sure seems like it.
It really does. In the research you guys have been doing, have you guys found any connection to possibly like ley lines, spiritual ley lines? Because people often do things like that, like UN is opening up in a very specific latitude and longitude, of course, 33 and all that situation. Have you guys ever found anything like that about Switzerland, maybe?
Personally, I haven't, but I do know that the UN is definitely on that line. But I find it fascinating because what's interesting about the WEF is that it's not like, hey, you're just a World Economic Forum member. Basically, there's over 3,000 members in this organization, and they're all from other organizations. A huge part of it is the United Nations, right? But a funny thing that I found interesting is that the head of CERN, right? So like pretty much he's not the head. I know there's a bunch of different countries that kind of run it together, but one of the main guys is a part of the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, just like a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's always that connection.
No, there is, and I've even got something. Don't have all the names for them, but what do you get when you combine China and India's richest billionaires, a corporate executive that rejects human rights, a banker that imposes austerity policies, and an academic who believes corporations should be citizens? That's where you get the Davos class. And so I've got them pictured here, of course. I know that we're not on the video side of things, but I've got a couple quotes here that kind of give you an idea about Klaus Schwab as well. I'll start with the oldest first. And it says, a new world could emerge, the contours which it is incumbent on us to reimagine and redraw. And then the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. And then, of course, this is the latest. This was an article on Breitbart. It's the eve of destruction. Klaus Schwab pledges the world can find salvation. Davos 2022. And it said this is what's plaguing the world today: famines, floods, pestilence, drought, plague, war, and rumors of war. So that's a direct Revelation quote verbatim there. So just kind of give you an idea of the types of things that he's openly willing to say. And, I think those are targeted at a few different people, and it kind of spreads across the board and does the trick differently for each group.
Right. Now, earlier I heard you guys mention that there's like a tie with someone's mother being more of Jewish descent. And I just, the reason I want to bring that up is just because there seems to be a faction of more secular Jews that are not really Jews as far as the practice of Judaism, but they're just Jews more in descent, and they're more, I hear that they are trying to self-fulfill the book of Revelation for their own purposes, like not in a more obvious Christian way, but more like, hey, we are these people trying to take over kind of thing.
Yeah, they're not looking for God's will to be done. They're looking for whatever it is that they're seeking,
right.
More of a Crowleyan influenced type of opinion, do as thou wilt, and they've just kind of figured out, if we lean left, they'll lean left. If we lean right, they'll lean right. So let's kind of plant some things in place that, they'll lean right into. And, so far it seems to really stay disguised as, better for humanity, better for the population. When you look at things like the Sustainable Development Goals and you start to read, the no poverty and they use these buzzwords and they use these terms, that sound real appealing to just the general masses that maybe haven't looked into any of the history. And, some of those things there, when you can give the impression that you have good intentions and people just follow blindly, I don't really know if there's a limit to the destruction that can be done.
So, what exactly is going on in Davos that we should be concerned about? I mean, it almost sounds like we just spoke of it kind of like quickly. Oh, they're just having meetings, bro. Nothing to worry about over there, man. They're just billionaires having meetings. Like, why do I need to care? You know?
Yeah, nothing happens
Right.
from meetings.
Mm-mm.
No, never. Well, we do have a quote from the president of the World Economic Forum. I always say the name wrong. I think it's Borja Brende. This annual meeting happens against the most complex geopolitical and geoeconomic situation in decades. We'll have to focus even more on impact and outcomes.
Mm.
What's awesome about this organization in the sense of like finding information about them is that they literally post every single thing they want to do. Like all their agendas are on their website, and so they're very open about it. And I have a quote here that pretty much, and I'll answer your question, I swear. But this on the website, it states that global governance is a means to manage issues that cut across national borders, whether it is a pandemic, right? So we just went through that. A financial crisis, we're going through that. Climate change, that's their crux for every single thing that they're doing, right? So the whole sustainable development goal is based on this scare tactic of climate change, which is the biggest money making fraud in the history of the world, in my opinion. It also says, or a geoeconomic dispute, though traditionally created on diplomacy and international organizations, a wide variety of public and private actors now engage in cross-border governance. The work itself expanded well beyond treaty making to include formal and informal monitoring, standard setting, enforcement, and financing. Sorry. It says effective governance is essential to secure peaceful, healthy, and prosperous societies, particularly now amid COVID-19, worsening ecological crises, maintaining geopolitical tensions, and growing nationalists against globalization. So obviously, the growing nationalists, where obviously a nationalist is somebody who wants to prosper their own nation. They don't want to be under this global control. That's a threat to them, and they're very open about it. But it's funny because this has the same exact goal as United Nations. If you look at what the United Nations was built for, they say it was built to maintain global security and peace, and to have a world to secure the world economics, I guess, and to have that all under control. Like they want a global governance everything.
Do you guys think?
Right. So,
and
I already forgot your question by the end of that.
No worries. Rabbit holes is what we do here, and sometimes we don't even answer our own questions. That's what we're known for at Fire Theft Radio.
You're muted, brother.
Okay, sorry. There we go. Well, we were muted. We were muted for you guys, but the guys will on our end will hear me. But anyways, so like I was saying, sometimes we go on our own rabbit holes and we don't answer our own questions. So it's all good. That's what we do here at Fire Theft Radio. People often complain too. It's hilarious. They'll send me an email and be like, hey man, you didn't even get to the bottom of that. But hey, do your own research, folks. We're just opening up doors here. But no,
sometimes we're just chasing rabbits.
Mm-hmm. And, yes. And they are hard to catch, I'll tell you. So what I was going to say is, do you think, and I got to tread softly here because I know it's like one of those things, but you said that one of the things they want to get rid of is people who are more like nationalistic because they want to go more towards globalism. And as I started doing that research and researching modern things and things in the past history, I feel like it's one of the biggest reasons they've elevated Hitler to be the worst enemy ever. I mean, Hitler is literally sometimes above Satan as far as an evil person. Like, what are you, Hitler? And I feel like there's a lot of propaganda there to make him. I mean, there's more, and I'm not softening anything up here that's saying he wasn't as bad as people claim or anything like that. But what I'm saying is more like there are other dictators who killed far more people and did far worse things, but for whatever reason, we must pay attention to him and make him the worst kind of dictator. And one of the differences I think is that he was more of a nationalistic dictator versus the other ones were promoting socialism, communism, and things like that. But I don't know. I could be reading into that. What do you guys think?
I kind of agree with you. I think a lot of those keywords and buzzwords have really started to show back up, and we see that if someone ends up feeling a little cornered on the internet, depending on their views, the opposite side becomes a Nazi. We just hear so many references and so many people referred to as a Hitler, a Nazi, and then I'm with you. We got to tread fairly lightly, but if you just kind of look at those kind of comparisons that we saw in the past few years, people really volunteered to put on the brown shirt, and they were looking for the gold stars, and they were really willing to sell their neighbor up the river, for nothing at all. I mean, there's not even a bag of silver involved here, right? It's just because they think that they're doing their part. They think that they're saving the world. And that hero complex, becomes very real. And we see that come out in forms of Karens and, just they come out of the woodwork, right? People all of a sudden that were not vocal and were not involved, right? When grandma's life is on the line, they care, they become passionate, and they're ready to fight for it.
Mav, you got a question, or do you want me to keep going?
No, we were just talking about using Hitler as a almost a separated out image, right? Just using Hitler as this iconic sort of figure that just represents evil. Have you heard of Godwin's law?
No,
I have not.
Godwin's law. It's funny, but you can look through. It's not really funny, but Godwin's law says an internet argument or discussion will grow at a certain ratio until there's a comparison to Nazis or Adolf Hitler. So, like,
interesting.
There's a line to where all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're like Hitler, and then that's like this crest of you've reached the end of the actual discussion.
See, and that's what I'm saying. There's so many.
Like a principle that's recognized that people can see that it's just used in argumentation and in just our online world right now.
Right. And that's what kind of fascinates me about how like human psychology works and propaganda, because it's like you just have to create a certain thing in order to either push something forward or stop it. And you just have to throw it out there and the masses do the work. Right? The actual thing is just an idea. It's like a little set, like a program, and then you let them do the work, and then it either, we spread it or we don't, and it depends on what we do. But that's why I feel like these meetings that happen at Davos, and was part of the question I asked earlier, Jeremy, was what's going on? Why should I care what's going on there? And that's because they're planning exactly what we should be doing with our finances. But I think the worst part of it, we haven't mentioned it, is that they are not elected by us. No one elected them. They're unelected officials deciding what the world should do, right? I think that's one of the biggest problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, they're trying to influence every, like I said earlier, every sector of society. Like I think in 2022, the biggest point they were trying to make, because each year the theme is a little different, but this year is more about cybersecurity, right? So you got to watch whenever the feds or an organization like UN or the WEF practice these drills. So right now, their major drill is cybersecurity. So that's what they're doing now, right? And to put this in perspective about their drills, right, we can already see that with 9/11 and the Boston bombings and all the drills that were literally happening exactly at the same time, you know what I mean, as this event goes down, almost to a T, right?
Right. So that's important to point out. The drills are dangerous because they literally happen right after. When big folks are doing drills, it's kind of dangerous.
Yeah. And so, like, for example, in what was it? November of 2019, I think. It might have been
yeah.
October, but
Okay.
Event 201 was it was created by the World Economic Forum, Bill Gates, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I believe it was the FBI. So all three of them came together, and what was their goal? Right? They made this simulation.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian. You wanna explain it?
No, I was just going to say it was a tabletop exercise for anybody that's not familiar what it was. And I think you're right. I think it was October 2019.
Yeah, and it simulated this SARS-CoV-2 virus pretty much starting. I think their place that they started it in the simulation was in like South America, but it spread from China all across the world, and then within 18 months, 60 million people die in this, and then vaccines are rolled out to pretty much secure the world. But during this time, they had an economic crisis and they had food shortages and all that stuff, right? Exactly to the T. Like 3 months later, after that went down, what happened? SARS-CoV-2 virus got released from quote unquote China, right? And it spread across the globe, and millions of people died. And then they rolled out this fast track this vaccine, and all the stuff that was in this simulation literally happened 3 months later. And so
And
now their goal. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, this is from like Event 201, right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
this event 201. Yep.
And then I think that the interesting part of that, if you look up Event 201, and some of the funding and some of the research came from like Johns Hopkins University and the different types of organizations that are connected there. That's why I think it's important to bring that up, only because those folks are deeply connected with no other than the World Economic Forum. So again, like paid research by these people, by
Bill Gates.
Bill and Melinda Gates, and all these reputable, quote unquote, reputable companies are predicting these possibilities and then reaping the benefits. It's like the order out of chaos, right? And so we just see these repetitive things happening over and over and over, and all from what you say is, what are they called again? I'm lost the word. They're what are these practice events? What was the word we were using earlier?
Drills.
Drills. Yes, drills. And do you guys remember? I could be getting the thing wrong, but one of the drills that scared me that happened here in America, or that was supposed to happen. I don't even know if it really happened because I didn't see it. But you guys remember the rising conspiracy of how Operation was it called Jade Helm was going to happen?
Yep.
And and how the military was just going to do its thing and pretty much rattle people. Put people in sections and sectors. And what I think it's important people to understand is, if you live in a city, anything with a population well over 5,000 or more, or even less than that, but the way the cities are built in a very grid-like fashion. I mean, if you've ever traveled and you fly above at night, you can see that they all look like a grid. For the most part, it's very easy for the military to put people together in an area and lock you down. It's not that hard. And I think, in my opinion, this goes back to ancient biblical times. I'm talking about like, watch whoever showed Tubal-Cain to make cities. Honestly, hey, this is the best way to have people like cattle and not even know, living their best lives inside these gigantic cities. And little do we know that, I mean, we kind of know, if you pay attention, living in a big city makes you so dependent of it that it weakens you as a person, right? You're so dependent on the water, you're so dependent on the food source, it all. I mean, you just buy it all. You're not, and if it comes from corporations, and if you don't have any independence at all they got to do is pull the plug, and then you're completely in their control. And that's because you live in the system, really kind of like a Babylon type system that you're in the midst of, and it all comes from this control. And I firmly believe big cities like that are probably one of the most evil, kind of very subtly evil things, because not only does it breed sin, does it breed all these other things that happen when you compile a large group of people together, but the amount of control you can have over a large population is quite like crazy. It's kind of scary, and I don't think people are aware of that. You were going to say something, Matt?
You describe all those things like they're bad things because I just hear safe.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, right. National security.
Right, and that's what
It's
That's
like
exactly-
a city's like a big hug.
right.
that
Just
It
embrace it.
just eventually strangles you.
Right, and just
And
embrace the
they're free.
hug.
Just like hugs, they're free, right? I mean,
Ah,
that's the
Totally free.
point. You know, if you
Ah.
grab out and you reach and you pull a few of those things from, you know, the outside bubble, and you start to look at things instead of a timeline, but like the spheres of influence, right?
mhm.
And how this bubble affects this bubble, and they intersect here, and then they intersect with another one. And so, no, you're exactly right, Chuck, that you know the sustainable development wants to pull everyone out of these rural areas, and they want to shove them into these smart cities. Think like Ready Player One, right? Like
Yep.
stacked on
Mhm.
top of each other, on top of each other.
Mhm.
And you're also right. When you get any big group of people together, what do we see happen? Fornication and fights and drug use, and you know, the more people at the party, right? Like the more sin that's definitely going to be present and glorified even. And so you're also right about the exercises like Jade Helm, and I think, you know, more like the Babel situation, you know, when when everything got divided up into 10 and the languages got confused, somebody somewhere was like, hey, hold on, let's do it like this, you know. And like you said, maybe Cain, you know, named his first city Enoch, you know, that they built. And you wonder, you know, how far do these things go back? Because some of these agendas, they only make sense when they utilize, you know, something that can see way farther into the past than we can, and possibly even predict into the future. So you mix things with like a spiritual influence, like you see maybe in the book of Enoch, you know, the fallen teaching man how to make weapons, and the art of seduction and the cutting of root. And then you factor in something like AI that they're trying to perfect into being able to use statistical data and all the data that we freely give, you know, a picture of every sandwich you make. And then they're able to make these predictions of what you're going to do tomorrow, a year from now. And then
Minority Report.
if anybody was ever curious about that event 201 and how successful it was, you know, just think about how quick they knew what businesses were essential and where to draw the lines. It's because they already did the math and they played it out with every way, you know, to introduce some Marvel concepts, right? They basically had Doctor Strange look at every single possible outcome, and they picked the one that worked best for them. You know,
Have
so I'll
you
give that to somebody else now.
Mhm.
have you heard of or read the book Foundation? It's a sci-fi. I think it's Asimov.
It doesn't sound familiar, but I'm going to check it out now.
Isaac,
Apple made a series. So if you don't want to read the book, apparently the book is a slog. But the concept is that humanity got to a point where you could just predict what people will do. I think they call it psychohistory, where basically they can just say, "Oh, they're going to do this thing." They basically predict the future based on those things.
Yeah, Minority Report, thought crime. Yeah,
no,
yeah, they put it everywhere. They put it in every genre, you know, so they can
Well-
get everyone used to these ideas and desensitized to it.
if I may
Right.
interject, which I was just talking to somebody about this because they asked me, I don't think people are aware of how advanced our AI type technology are in order to predict human behavior that already run on our apps on the phone, and so people are not aware that that's how good and how accurate they are. I saw a movie lately, which we're going to do an entertainment breakdown one day, me and Matt will.
Someday.
Yeah, and it's that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio he just made for Netflix called Don't Look Up. Have you guys seen it?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
So I'm a
Probably.
big
Yeah.
proponent of, if you're entertained or if you're not paying attention to the movie, the most important information of the movie is not the actual plot, right? It's the stuff happening in its surroundings that is very revealing to the plans that are in our future. There's a part in the movie that the whole movie fascinated me because it was very interesting about human psychology and how it works with technology, which I feel is its intention for it to do that. Probably one of the most overt movies to really show you what that looks like in the human world. But there's a line towards the end. They have an Apple CEO type guy, and I forgot his name, but he is like, you know, like a like a Bezos. You know, but no, what's that guy? Steve Jobs. He's like a Steve Jobs. Sorry.
You're talking about jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's trying to. There's a point towards the end of the movie where he's having an argument with, I think it's Leo's character, someone's character, and he tells him that the algorithm that he's running on him, it has predicted everything he's going to do, even his death date, and how he's going to die based on the types of decisions that he's been making. All compiled together with that algorithm is pretty much predicting, and it came up to an accuracy of like 90 something, like 99%. Like this very accurate AI algorithm is running this all the time. And I was like, whoa, I was reading about that a long time ago, and here it is, like very open in the movie. And I don't think people are realize that, because I just saw someone complain the other day, like, I think my phone is reading my mind. I think technology can read my mind. And I was thinking about it a while. I was like, I don't think it's reading your mind. I think it's predicting your life already, because you're interacting with the social medias so much that it hears you when you speak and all that stuff. So it can assess all of that information and literally say, this is what you like, this is what you don't like, these are the things. And people get blown away by it, like, dude, this is crazy. It's like it knows me. I'm like, yes, it does. Actually, it knows you quite well, probably more than your family members, because it hears you talking when no one else is talking, even, you know. So, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, some of it too, it's a little bit different. It's too simplistic to think that just listen to my microphone. Also, it would take the computing power necessary to evaluate that many conversations is insane. But one thing they can also do, and this sort of plays into all of this, is they will aggregate what people are. So, for instance, I'll give an example, and this will kind of let me not explain it. Someone is talking with 5 other people in a group, and they're talking about this really neat, power drill that they were looking at on Amazon. And so they're all talking about it, right? So maybe one of them searches for it. Maybe the other person also, like, oh, I'll send that to you. So they share a thing. So for those 5 people who are on the same Wi-Fi that were talking about the same thing, what they do is they actually send out the ads to all of them and see who bites.
Mm-hmm.
Who responds.
Okay. And so some of it's not, they're listening to my microphone. They're just aggregating information in a section. And what happens is then when we actually engage with it, so then when we actually tap on the ad, you're confirming. So you're actually helping them figure those things out through interactions.
Right.
Yep. So it's not just they're listening to this thing. They're using these things to help to map some of those things. So someone was Chuck, you brought up Jade Helm. So the military exercises or whatever that looks like. So imagine this. They don't even have to actually have a war or a skirmish or anything. What if they figured out all we have to do is mobilize troops, and everyone all of a sudden has a feeling that they're doing this? You can move a whole population to do a thing without actually doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then start all the people taking pictures of tanks rolling through their towns all on the same day in that time window. And yeah, I bet the group conscience as a whole changed. People that didn't even see it suddenly are aware or in fear.
And a lot of this is testing and then measuring so that they can better refine all those things to get to the point where they know if they have one news report on one day that goes out on a certain network, that they'll have a certain result. So a lot of our interaction with a lot of those things is building that and helping that. And so in some ways it's like it's super advanced, but in the other way it's like they're still in a big old testing phase, and everything we do is helping them. You know, every time you make a purchase online and you have to read the wavy letters, you're helping train the AI on recognition, all those different things.
Have you guys ever heard of Yuval Noah?
No.
From the World Economic Forum?
Yes, I only heard it recently with you guys on William Ramsey. So go ahead and bring that up, please.
Yeah, because everything you guys just said is the perfect segue into this, to this quote that is probably more substantial and important than most people want to realize, and we probably won't have time to get into everything else, but between the food shortages and the war going on and everything, and how that all connects to the World Economic Forum. But this quote, and it's kind of lengthy. I don't know if you guys mind if I read it for you guys.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so yeah, this is important. Yuval Noah, and I forgot his last name. It was like I didn't want to botch it, so I didn't even write it down. But he's Klaus Schwab's like right hand man, right? So he is like Klaus Schwab's influencer. You know what I mean? Like he uses this guy to influence everybody else. He is the mind, right? So he says he was on a show that was about the World Economic Forum, and he was being interviewed. And if you didn't know, you can on Spotify or whatever, you can go to they have their own podcast called the Davos. It's called Davos Radio. Okay, and they'll tell you everything that we've talked about.
No,
they'll
don't.
Straight up tell you.
They have Davos podcast.
Yeah, it's called Davos Radio, and it's literally from the World Economic Forum.
That's funny. All right,
it's wild. Anyways, so she asked the question about, the context is basically what is at stake and what are the consequences to this future that we're going to with technology, right? Because it's becoming so much more advanced and it's happening very, very quickly. So his response is, oh yeah, and this guy is a huge depopulationist, just like the rest of them. They all hate mankind except for themselves. Right. But he says, on one level, the more shallow level, it would be a repeat of the 19th century revolution when the leaders of industry basically had the power to dominate the entire world economically and politically, right? That was when the industrial revolution, basically, right? So he says, and it could happen again with AI evolution and biotech evolution of the 21st century. And we are already beginning. He says, I understand the current arms race as an imperial arms race, which may lead very soon to the creation of data collection modules. You don't need to send a soldier in if you have all the data for a particular country, right? So, like, based on even war, they'll have all this data where you don't even need to send a soldier in, right? Which is crazy. That means that they're going to have advanced weaponry, like way more than we can think of right now, comprehend. But yeah, so he says, but on a much broader and deeper perspective, he says, I think it really is going to shape the future of humanity and the future of life itself, because the new technologies will give some corporations and governments the ability to hack human beings. There is a lot of talk about, sorry for the page turn, humans with there's a lot of talk about quote unquote humans will change more in the next 100 years than in the entire existence of humanity. He says AI and biotech could undermine the idea of individual freedom, making the free market and liberal democracy obsolete. Democracy in the current form cannot survive the merger of biotech and infotech, right? So then he continues and says, because this is all part of their fourth industrial revolution, which is, I'm going to throw that out there so people can look it up. Just look it up, type in fourth industrial revolution, it'll tell you all about it. They want to merge mankind with machines. So continuing, he says, hacking computers, smartphones, bank accounts, emails, but the really big thing is hacking human beings. He says, to hack human beings, you need a lot of biological knowledge, a lot of computing power, and especially a lot of data. If you have enough data about me and enough computing power and biological knowledge, you can hack my body, my brain, my life. You can reach a point where you know me better than I know myself, right? And he continues to says, and once you reach that point, quote, and we are very close to that point, then the democracy, the free market, actually all political systems, also authoritarian regimes, we have no idea what happens once we pass that point. Whoever wins this arm race will be in control. He says, and it's really going to change the life of humans, animals, and new types of entities.
But the beauty is, we do know what's going to happen, right? Because we hear that men will cry out for death and it will flee them.
Yep. Amen.
So in the 2045 initiative too, right? Check that out if you want to know a little more about merging man and machine and the transhumanist movement and all that. And I could give a real quick example of something real digestible of how easy it is, right? And they don't even need a lot of time or data. But I moved from Tennessee to Washington State, right, 6 years ago now, and I bought a new phone when I got here. And so, and actually I switched over to the iPhone. So this is totally different operating system, right?
Mhm.
So within a week, I go to use my maps because I don't know this town. And so I needed to find somewhere. And it had two things saved. One was home and one was work. And I didn't save either of those in my phone. And so all day at work, I thought about it. Wait, I've been here 8 hours moving around, right? And then I go home. And at that place, I lay down for 8 hours and I don't move. So I just gave them enough data in 1 week's time by moving for 8 hours at one place and not moving for 8 hours at one place. And they knew what was home and what was work. And they went ahead and saved that in case I needed to find them later. So that's how easy it was 6 years ago. Flash forward to now after the past 3 years and what data we've given them. And I think that just do the math.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's pretty insane. I mean, I work for Coca-Cola. I manage accounts for them. So I move around a lot, and it has me grid down to the day, and the work phone, I have to leave it open. And it knows exactly around what time I go to a different store. And that's just,
so if you're not where you're to be when you're supposed to be there, you can be held accountable. Mm-hmm. So imagine when that creeps outside of work life into everyday life.
Absolutely. And all of this stuff is things that are brought up in the World Economic Forum conversations and the Davos conversations. And I think this is the stuff that people don't understand. In order to make sustainable development happen, which sounds amazing to people because they think they're going to get rid of poverty. No, they're going to get rid of you because you're part of what makes everything not sustainable. So the cattle we don't need.
All useless eaters, right?
Right. And so they just need enough people to push the machine forward, and everyone else is just gone. And they always talk about this utopia of even that I don't fully buy into, like the transhuman, as far as like, oh, it's going to be transhumanism for everyone. And it's like, nah, bruh, not for everyone, man. Not at all, man. It's going to be for the elite class, which is what, in my opinion, one of the reasons is just trying to get rid of the middle class, because it's like it's going to be the poor people and the elites, and that's it. And what I think a show that really brings that to light is that movie or that show Altered Carbon, the first season. Have you guys seen it?
I've seen a few episodes, and I know the gist of the.
Yeah, so that one, if you see the whole thing, you got to see it all the way to the end. To the end, it's like in your face kind of thing, where you talk about the elites having these secret places where they meet and they do sexual acts and depraved things and things like that. That's where it ends up taking him towards the end. I guess, spoiler alert. He's trying to research who murdered this billionaire or trillionaire, like ultra trillionaire, who every time he gets killed, he just kind of transfers his body into another body. And that's kind of like the whole premise of the show. Like, people can just transfer their stacks, and their whole life is in one chip. And you put this chip into another body, and then boom, you got another body. You can be a woman, you can be a man, you can be black, you can be white, anything you can afford, pretty much. And so the wealthy just reclone themselves, and they can just transfer their stacks and stay alive forever. And they even call themselves gods. They have this tree of life, all this occult symbolism everywhere. The murder, all that information leads them to a hotel in the sky where they commit sexual acts. They murder people. They're pedophiles, all kinds of different things. And he's like, this is unbelievable. There's just so much stuff that is kind of in your face, and that's kind of like the future of the world, where there was only this wealthy class, and then everyone else who served them in these gigantic mega cities, and then no one existed outside these cities. Everyone else was dead, and so it's just, again, the stuff's kind of in the background, but that's the most important stuff. Now, guys, anything that you guys think is incredibly relevant that we're just kind of skipping over as far as the World Economic Forum, please bring it up that has to do with all this stuff, because I know we're just kind of like tying. I mean, this is what this show is. This is what we're doing here, the HYDRA situation, because we're connecting as many dots as possible. So even though we're going off on tangents, we want to make people realize that it's all tied together with the agendas found in the World Economic Forum.
It's true, and I'll jump in real quick and just say it takes a lot of dot connecting. Insert Mr. Crazy Man here, right? So these are normally a little more organized and on a board, but that's how my brain works, right? In this exploded view, and I like to be able to see what I'm looking at.
Yeah, we'll give you the red string, bro, so that you can be the real life meme.
And a cigarette in your hand.
That's exactly. Jeremy told me, wait, where's the red thread? And so I would say that a few other topics that are going to fit into this that are going to be important factors. So look into eugenics, look into Margaret Sanger, look into Planned Parenthood. You'll notice if you just look at photos of celebrities together, right? You can kind of do the math yourself. I was talking with William, like if you see a couple guys that don't belong together, photoed together, like what are they implying with these photos? What's the point of this photo? When it's basically, excuse my language, pretty damning evidence, right? To the truest sense of the term. And so if you just look at, the influence that things like Margaret Sanger, had on Gates, and his father and the foundations, and then where the Gates Foundation puts their money, and not to pick on one person, the Bezos empire that's building, and there's so many skills that are on the rise, so many skills that are on the decline, and they're open about the tipping points, and so just look at some of those terms and words as you're researching. Look for those things like tipping point, 2045 initiative, transhumanism, and that will lead you kind of where you need to go to where you'll understand it in a way that makes sense to you.
Jeremy?
I had a...
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Go on, bro.
No, I'd like to hear Jeremy's take on that first, or what he's going to bring up. Then I have a question.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the most important things that I think is going on right now is all this, this manufactured food shortage. And what I found very interesting, besides, about 100 food processing plants having planes crash into them or burning down or whatever, you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous to me, as clear as day, that it's manufactured. And one of the goals, and you can look this up, just type in World Economic Forum plant-based diet. And one of their goals is to bring the world into a more sustainable diet for humanity. And it's a plant-based diet or alternative like bugs. Like this is what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so you can see this through the war and in the United States and in other countries that they're not really speaking about as much. But all these food processing plants are burning down and getting destroyed. And again, part of their agenda is to bring the world into a plant-based diet or an alternative diet. And they just built, I mean, come on, you wouldn't have thought about this 10 years ago. They just built in Ontario, Canada, the world's largest grasshopper facility in the world. It's the largest one, and it's made for food. It's made to be processed for food as an alternative diet.
What they think we are, John the Baptist?
It's...
there was
that's crazy, man. Now I know they're trying to make more soy boys, man. But go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say there was a serpent in a garden that recommended a plant-based diet to a certain woman a long time ago.
Nice, man. That's
just
great.
saying.
Ooh, if a vegan ever comes up to me and tells me that, I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna bust that out. It's a good one, Mav. But no,
Did God really say that you could eat meat?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Yeah, no, we're not trying to bash on vegans. I know we got some vegan listeners, but I am trying to bash on you a little bit. Sorry. Anyways, but no. So here's the thing. Why is that important though? See, eating meat is very important. Okay. Now I know there's tons of studies, blah blah blah. We can argue all day with vegans or vegetarians, but the fact of the matter is, it's incredibly important to eat very healthy, real meat and as organic as possible. And right now, me and Mav both started getting on a more meat and fruit diet and organs. But organs are hard to eat, so I get them. I get desiccated organs in pill form. But anything you can find in vegetables, you can find in organs without the toxins. And in my opinion, it contributes, and I said that earlier as kind of a joke, but it's true that it contributes to making men actually less masculine, less testosterone filled. Yeah, as they say, they really are trying to make more soy boys, as they say. And I don't mean that in a political reference. I mean that in an actual real. They're trying to lower testosterone levels because then there's going to be men that are unwilling to revolt. There's men that are going to be unwilling to stand up and save their family, save their country. And they become, just by consequence, more submissive because, believe it or not, because of what you're eating. You're unwilling to fight back. Yeah, exactly. And then that's the other part, is the sterilization, and make you less, fertile to make more children.
Well, isn't that the agenda that Pharaoh had in Egypt?
Oh, okay.
To get rid of the boys?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they figured out that was pretty much that was to avert. Like, we need to do this in a more covert way.
Right.
Yeah. No midwives necessary.
Right. And
seen that Utopia 25, the rat Utopia? I posted a link in the chat. Mm-hmm. That'll give you a pretty good idea of what a utopia looks like, and especially speaking in the terms of soy boy. So y'all check that out when you get a chance.
Indeed. Well, we are hitting about an hour, folks. Mav, any question that's just burning in you that you're like, you know what, we got to get this out there?
I did have a question. I think it's kind of helping us with this question will help with the idea of the Hail Hydra concept. We have a lot of people who we interact with or listen to this show who may have been into conspiracies a long time ago. The old timers, people who know who G. Edward Griffin was and all that kind of stuff. So there are some people who would say, oh, it's the UN. And there are other people who would say it's this 2030 agenda. Some other people who would say it's Bilderberg or those different things. So question is, are these all individual groups that have the same idea? Or is it schismed on purpose to keep people in one lane so they don't see the bigger connection? Or is it something else?
I would absolutely recommend zooming out farther and then zooming out farther again. So they're definitely connected, probably more on the outside of the circle than the inside. It's not visible.
It's like a big spider web.
And they definitely want to keep us all divided into we put ourselves in these groups, right? So they have to appeal to each individual group, So go ahead, Jeremy. I know you've got something as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I picture a big spider web. They're in different spots, all these connecting points are in different spots, but, if you can picture a spider web, they all connect in one way or another, and they all just happen to, their goal is to hit each sphere of society and each sector of society to, one, not make it look like there's a global conspiracy going on, but two, it helps regulate all these, their massive plan. Because you can't do it with one single organization. You have to have these different facets. You have to have these little tiny groups that answer to the higher ups and the higher ups. And I think that what's important to realize is like you said, it's not just the UN or it's not the UN, and it's not just the Bilderbergers. It's all of them. And then when you go back to the World Economic Forum, they have all of them in there. Like, again, you got members of the UN, you got members of the IMF and the European central banks and the China central banks and everything. They're all involved with the WEF, so they connect on almost every level back to this group, in my opinion.
Sounds a lot like the young global leaders and all these different groups of groups that bring, the MVPs from each team and play together on a summer league. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They just do it in January. But
they can replace the guys that are going to die. They're not going to live forever. So all the old people who have been in the game for a long time, these young global leaders, which is a faction of the WEF, will eventually replace these people with the same goal.
Mm.
Yeah, and in case there are people who think, well, I'm a Christian, I go to church, stuff that I'm kind of outside of all of those different things. Just as a reminder, Rick Warren boasted that he met Francis Collins at a Davos meeting. So to think that none of these things kind of bleed out into some of the circles that we all run in, if you're a Christian or if you go to church or something else, is, I think, very naive as well. So just to kind of put that out there.
They all intersect. I just wanted to say one one last thing, Jeremy. I think your spider web analogy is perfect, because go find a spider web. What kind of bugs does a spider web catch? All the kinds.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah, and it fits perfect. I think that's a good way to sort of end this episode, because that's exactly why this is called Hell Hydra. You know, we have a lot of connections everywhere. This is like an octopus. There's an arm for the military-industrial complex. There's an arm into the finances. There's an arm into technology. There's an arm into absolutely everything that connects to human life. And there is a huge connection between all of those things and the WEF. There's a lot of people in there, including America's favorite Dan Crenshaw. Oh, no, it's fine. I want to get into that. That's another conversation. I was going to bring that up earlier, but it's like, nah, man, that's gonna rabbit hole into something else. But
one of my daughters saw a picture of him and thought he was like, oh, it's like Danger Mouse.
Oh gosh, but yeah. So I think the last thing I want to kind of bring up is we'll probably leave this for another episode. But the last thing I heard Klaus Schwab talk about, which was very interesting, and it ties together with the virus, is how you guys hear him talk about the internet and how internet can get sick, like if it can get a virus and it's going to have to shut down and all these different things. And did you guys hear that conversation?
And yeah, that's what this whole 22 Davos thing is about, is global cybersecurity,
Right.
which can go into other things.
Right. And so
Yeah, that's one of those tipping points there. That's another one of those tipping points.
right. And coincidentally, they're working on what they call, a lot of people are calling Internet 3.0. And I just think it's a perfect setup, right? So it seems like this whole coronavirus is definitely one of those order out of chaos. All this chaos came out, and so we got a solution, right? That happens all the time. So, but that's all I got to say, folks. I just want to bring that up. We're going to leave that one for another episode, because that is a very long conversation. I want to dedicate a whole episode just to the internets, the history of the internets, and where it was, where it is, and where it's going, and exactly what they can do with that. And that's a whole nother conversation. So, guys, Brian, Jeremy, please plug your information. Where can they find your stuff? Anything you guys want to share? Please let the folks know where they can find it.
Well, that's a good time for me to invite you guys both on to Buy Their Fruits, right? We want to have you on there soon as well, because I think there's a lot more conversations to be had. We've really enjoyed this one. We appreciate the invite. You can reach me, follower of the way 85 at gmail.com. There's a little bit of a social media presence on Instagram and Facebook for Buy Their Fruits, and you can definitely find us there. Jeremy, go ahead and plug anything you got as well, brother.
Yeah, I should probably make an email for this, just specifically for, for this thing, but for Buy Their Fruits. But you can reach me right now on Facebook. It's just Jeremy Stone, and you'll see the picture of Buy Their Fruits as my thumbnail. And if you have any questions or want to talk about, anything, and got questions for the WEF, let me know and I'll answer your questions.
Wait a minute. You follow me on Facebook? Is that you, Chuck FTR? You follow me?
I'm not sure.
I have a Jeremy Stone that follows me.
I think you have a page, right?
Yeah. Look at you spying at me this whole time.
Oh yeah, dude. I've been listening to your show since I moved to Washington, man. About 6 years now. I can't remember if I found it through William or Gary Wayne, but it was one of the two.
Oh, appreciate that. Yeah, no, because let me see. I'm gonna check right now. I'm gonna investigate you, Jeremy. I just
found out your name was Chuck at the beginning of this episode. So
yeah, we're friends on Facebook. You didn't even know, bro. That's crazy.
Your name was Fire Theft Radio.
Yeah.
I just followed that group.
Okay, cool. Well, looks like you followed me a while ago on Chuck FTR, my personal page. So there you go. Cool. Anyways, well, that's how these algorithms work. Probably one of the weirdest experiences I've had, which I'll just close with this, and I just need to say it because I thought of it when I was listening to you guys with William Ramsey. I used to game online. I used to play Halo quite a bit. Never really played anything else. I just liked Halo because I played it for a long time. So I got my daughter into it, and she's playing And then all of a sudden, people start friending you, and you can friend people, and you can just follow them. And there's all these options to do online now. And I don't know what the odds are, but people started following me. And one guy recognized me, I guess, recognized my voice. And then I also go by Chuck on there. And he was like, "Hey, man, are you like from Fire Theft Radio?" And I was like, "Yes, that's me." And he's like, "Dude, I listened to your show. I'm in Washington." And I was like, "What the heck?" And I was like the second or third person that just randomly decided, hey, I popped up on their feed and they're like, I'm going to follow this guy and things like that. And at first I was freaking out. Like, what are the odds? Oh my gosh, I'm so big. People are know who I am. It had nothing to do with that. And then I just realized it was like, you know what? I think the algorithm is just sharing people that I know, people that follow me in some way or another, and it's starting to connect those people too. So if you follow my show, you're going to get top bunk on the FEMA camp with me. That's what I mean, you're just connected with me already. It's just what it is. I don't know if you guys have ever had that happen to you, but it's happened already multiple times.
Just like God lines up divine connections for us, right? The enemy is always trying to attempt to manipulate and copycat, what the Father can do. And so I think it's no surprise that they're trying to figure out how to be omnipresent and omnipotent, right? They want to be able to have a hive mind of sorts.
Right.
They want to hear all the prayers. They're always trying to mimic what God's doing. And so there is something to be said that we normally try to center these things back on Christ and on hope. And our hope is found in him alone, right? In our salvation. It's not from Davos. It is from Christ the King. So sometimes we get caught up in these darker topics and, we kind of forget to recenter on, we kind of know the end and how it plays out, and we have hope to be found. So I like to throw that in as well.
100%. Any final thoughts, Jeremy, before we land this plane?
Oh, I'm all set, man.
Good. Mav, you good to go?
Thank you again for having me on, though.
What about you, Mav?
I'm all good. This is a great conversation and look forward to many more.
All right, folks. Jeremy, Bryant, stick with me. These folks are going to listen to some jams. As always, we like to do the synth live right here. So we'll be right back.